this guide has been tested, failed, relearned, refined, and proven in rank matches. None of it came from theory alone. Welcome everyone to my long-awaited and admittedly very delayed 2026 Breaking Wheel guide. So just a really quick disclaimer, this won't be a remake of my old 4-part series. Those videos still cover the fundamentals pretty well, so if you're new to Wheel, I would recommend heading there first. I will have them on screen and or linked below in the description. So this guide, however, focuses on everything I've learned since then. So over the past few seasons, obviously, the meta and maps have changed, and some of the older advice isn't as reliable anymore. So this will be meant as a more up-to-date version. Ever since those guides, I've spent a lot more time pushing the character at a high deficit, so at a high level, reaching 146 Hydra Stars peak tier, over 22,000 character points, and competing at the top of any EU. After all of that, I felt comfortable putting everything I've learned into one place. We will be going through each map, covering spawns, strong and weak areas, rotations, survivor selection, and the small decisions that make a difference over time. It's mostly going to be simple explanations and map drawings rather than fancy clips, but overall, these are the ideas that shaped my gameplay. I know, theory isn't always the most exciting thing to sit through, but it is exactly what everything else builds on. So every fast down or clean win comes from understanding why you're making a decision. So naturally, if you want to improve with Wheel, focus on understanding rather than just copying mechanics. Because although mechanics can be practiced, decision making is what keeps your results consistent. Whether you're aiming for Manticore, or your first Hydra promotion, or simply trying to understand the character better, I truly hope this guide can help you. Now, let's begin. Okay, so first up, we have Chinatown. So this map is obviously, without a doubt, the best map for Wheel, for me at least. So obviously, you know, personal opinion here and there. Alright, anyways, we will begin with the most common spawn pattern. So it'll be here, 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 and then here. So it's a flipped T-shaped spawn, very standard for this map. It's a very general kind of selection. So you have your rescuer here, you have kiter, and usually the one on the right side is your decoder. So the reason why the decoder spawns in the open middle, so here, instead of here on the stairs, is because sometimes if the hunter picks, so we're going to just do green, if the hunter spawns here, that means he can go upper. So that'll leave the decoder to naturally move out, and then so moving upper, taking this loop, or simply taking this exit, getting the window boost. And then this is where it gets interesting, because there is like heavier theory regarding if he wants to slide on the other teammates' cipher, but that's beside the point. So we will go back to the other hunter spawn, which will be top right. So there's really only one logical thing for the hunter to do, which is chase under, and therefore the survivor, or the decoder in this case, will have an easier time going straight into restaurant, going upstairs, and then arriving at the upper floor, and then abusing the single pallet, and then continuing on his kite. Now, for Wheel specifically, the majority of the times, if it is a standard spawn position, I would spawn here. Now, the reason why is you can consider it to be somewhat complex, but also somewhat simple and straightforward. So usually, survivors would never, ever let the weakest person spawn here, because obviously it's like pretty weak area. Because even if you go indoor, you have a single stair area to abuse, but you're not really abusing anything because there's no pallets, there's no windows. It's just a single elevation area, and then when you drop down, you pretty much get screwed over because, you know, wheel has traps, right? So back to the position. For wheel, I pick top left. The reason why is the flexibility you have. For example, when you want to chase the person in front of you, get 75 damage, and then swap to person on the right. Or alternatively, after you've done that, if it is an easy rescuer, such as a journalist, you go straight into middle. So it's always going to be, the cipher spawn will always going to be, let's do it in yellow, over here, or over here. Let's make it more accurate, here. So that means 99% of the time, it will be easy presence, so the hit on the person in the open, and then a relatively fast down on the rescuer in middle, assuming it is an ideal target. Now, another way to look at this is you get your 75 hit on the person in front of you 80% of the time. Now, why is it 80%? 80% of the time, the person who spawned here on the right side will stay, so yellow, stay decoding on this cipher. The reason being, Chinatown is a very unforgiving map when it comes to early game rotations. Now, what I mean is, bottom middle, this person cannot rotate here. The reason being, cipher on this spot is blocked off. Now, why am I jumping to this conclusion specifically? If you've watched my older guide regarding Chinatown specifically, you would notice I would have said insolence plus trump card works really well on this map, as opposed to every other map I'd be running insolence plus confined space. So generally, if you stack something general on top of something else that is also general, the bottom right, so this corner area would be blocked off. So the person on here and the person on here cannot stack at the corner. So rotations is really, really hard, obviously. So that means 80% of the time, they would be resting, decoding over here. So how do you capitalize? How do you take advantage of that? Simple. Because, reason being, middle right, this entire area is a dead zone if you're facing wheel. This area is trash. You only get two pallets to work with, and you don't have a high ceiling. This single pallet area is also trash. You have no ceiling, and you can easily get 2 spikes or whatever technique you want, and then you block it off with a single trap there. And they're basically unable to rotate without either stepping into the thing or having to exhaust flywheel. Now, a slightly more unorthodox thing to do is, what if? Now, this has happened multiple times, multiple occasions for me at least. This has happened where the person spawning open middle goes indoor, and due to luck or spawn RNG, they are already on the stairs. So I'm gonna just draw this ugly. It's not even stairs. It's a very ugly stairs, right? So they're already taking the stairs. They're already going up. So what exactly do you do in this situation? For me, how I handle it is, I go around, I skip, keep going, and it's either chasing the rescuer first, or, like I have just explained, the person in open middle. So this is mostly Chinatown. This is mostly what you would do, what would happen, standard procedure when you're having flipped T-shaped spawn. Now we're gonna reset, and we're gonna do a slightly less common, but this spawn does happen quite a bit sometimes. So T-shaped spawn. Let's say this is rescue, this is decode, this is kite, and kite again. Now, what exactly do you do here? If you answered top left again, you'll be correct. Why exactly? Because fundamentally, it doesn't change. It doesn't change much whether if you go here and you go down, chasing rescuer, or you go here, go through here, the hallway, and then you chase decoder. The thought process for this map is you slightly eliminate someone spawning in a bad area into an indoor area for them to rotate either towards the outside for this machine, or slightly inside towards, or closer actually to this machine, roughly. Now, why would I say this map, this selection is more or less no problem, a non-issue? Because fundamentally, as I was saying, you're not chasing the person right under you because they are indoor. And you would notice this area has the God window. This window is basically infinite loop if you know what you're doing or if you play a certain survivor. Unless you bring confined space, but obviously no one uses that for this map. So for this, it sets you back just a tiny bit because you're taking slightly more time and risk overall to land spikes onto either the rescuer or the decoder. Anyway, now we're going to move on to a slightly different but somewhat similar spawn still. L shape. This might come up as a question sooner or later. So decoder, kiter, rescue, kite. So what exactly do you do here? Which spawn do you pick? If you said here, you'd be wrong. You'd be dead wrong. If you chose here, you would also be wrong. The same standard procedure, you spawn here, top left. You spawn top left. The reason being, same goes for cipher locking. You lock off the one over here. The person on bottom middle has to rotate. They cannot stack. Same concept. Same simple mid-tier concept even. So due to that, it is the reason why many people avoid spawning bottom right altogether, because you're essentially wasting a spawn selection. You do not want to spawn here. You do not want to spawn here. Which is kind of weird to say because you're not able to pick a really strong area. Therefore, you're forced to spawn like here, and then you have to work your way around. If the hunter spawns here or here, you have to rotate. Either way, Chinatown is a heavy, hard rotation map. So anyway, back to the position. If you chose top left, you'll be correct. Same standard procedure, because what would happen is, the majority of the time, I can't give too rough of an estimate because this one is highly unorthodox. It's somewhat frowned upon, is what I'm trying to explain. So what happens is, if, let's say, they do spawn here, simply put, the decoder would rotate upper, which is already a mistake in itself. It's a mistake. And so, you treat this match with the L shape as flipped T shape, because rotations. So that means, same standard procedure, do whatever you want with person in front, you either swap to easy rescuer, if it's, let's say, journalist or knight. Knight is very 50-50. Knight is a very coin flip character. Or simply put, once you get your 75 hit, you chase the decoder who has rotated to here to decode. They're going to be stuck. They won't have much resource. It might be already 60, 70-ish. They can definitely use flywheel, but more or less, you fed presence to wheel. You fed presence to wheel. Now, next up, we're going to do something slightly weird. Slightly weird spawn. So I think it is this one. Here, here, and here, right? So conventionally, let me just draw D, rescue, K, and K. So conventionally, this is what we call a anti-wheel spawn, because you pick only the strongest areas. Gone window, easy rotate into pallet window area, so this is good kite also. And then middle, rescuer, you're not chasing rescuer if it's mercenary or first officer. And you take bottom right, stairs. Now, what exactly do you do in this situation? If you pick here, you'd be wrong. If you pick here, you would also be wrong. So what is the only remaining spot for wheel to choose? It would be here. Now, if you tell me your first chase is here, towards your left, you'd be dead wrong. You'd be in a losing position. Now, how exactly do you play this out? If the survivors choose this exact spawn, it usually means one thing. It usually means they are expecting a wheel. It usually means they're expecting the hunter to select wheel. So not only does this mentally mess the hunter mind around because, you know, they took all his good spawns, it also forces you to adapt based on the survivor selections. So let's say worst case, right? Worst case, mercenary, for the decoder, let's just say prisoner, and then 2 other kiters, whatever. For this, since they are expecting wheel to be played, you spawn here, right? It is the least disadvantageous for you to pick. What do you do here? What do you do here? If you told me to chase after any of the 2 kiters, you'd lose. You'd lose. If you told me to chase mercenary, you'd honestly lose even harder. Now, if you tell me to force chase prisoner, you'd be correct, because honestly, this is the only correct thing to do. This is the only thing that is somewhat viable in your position. Now, what prisoner would be doing is, let me use yellow. Prisoner would try his utmost best to obviously not get down, not get spiked, right? He would abuse either one loop around here, which is, I'm not sure why some survivors do that. It's kind of a mistake, but some people like to do that, even though they don't have to, because you're literally selecting a wheel counter spawn. Wheel counter spawns. So realistically, if the decoder, in this case prisoner, is actually not brain dead, he would go towards indoor, and from there probably abuse the single collapsible window right under, or take the very simplified approach, which is going upstairs. We can't move this. Yeah, I can. Okay. Taking the upstairs kite, dropping pallet, dropping down, etc., etc., so on and so forth. Now, in this situation, you have to pack your bags. You have to accept the situation. You have to accept that sometimes there will be, if it's not target man, there will be people who pick counter spawns. So for this situation, you have to chase prisoner. You have to chase prisoner. So because of the terrain disadvantage on bottom right, you will have to cut some losses. You will have to accept a fairly laid down. Whether if it's exhausting blink, 60. So blink, 60-second down. Or, worst case, 80-second. Now, even if it's 80 seconds, if you know what you're doing, if you're able to smoothly convert your position using rhythm, then sure, it can very well be a draw position. It's possible, but don't entirely count on it. Now, this should be more or less all for Chinatown. It's a very forgiving map for wheel, that's for sure. But just know that sometimes if you are fighting exit gates, fighting late game, so obviously it's here, and then over here, right? So two opposite sides of each other. Where exactly does hatch spawn? Hallway, lion, pagoda, and then corner. I'm pretty sure it's just these three. When you're fighting the exit gates, when you're trying to, I'm gonna assume it's 3 survivors, 3 serve remaining. What you should be doing is, if you're here, you patrol to here once, and vice versa. If you're here, you patrol once. Now, this is not like definitive advice or something you 1,000,000% have to do if it is 3 survivor remaining, gates activated. Because sometimes, how do I put this? If there is one person here, and then someone middle, like somewhere in middle, I'm not sure, anywhere, here, I guess, is when you, hunter, yellow, when you are going from here to here, you're panicking, right? You're panicking. It's a very normal human response. The survivor from here will inevitably rotate, probably take the shorter distance instead of all the way around this map and then going to gate, right? Realistically. So what would happen exactly is you would be here. The 2 survivors would be leaving, scatter. Now, the person at middle will have a much easier time making it to the other side of the gate, simply because of, it's adjacent, it is parallel. These 2 gates are basically in front of each other. So when you are chasing one survivor, I'm going to just use red, so it's like more convenient. This survivor would have been already at this gate, and this survivor would have already opened it. So let's just say these 2 are basically at the gate. It's already opened. Now, because, assuming you don't have detention, it's either this guy escapes by keeping distance / using flywheel on your trap, whatever, and he escapes. Or slowly walk, he escapes. What could have been prevented? What could have been done to prevent this loss? The thing is, tinnitus is key. Tinnitus. All right. So, red is you, hunter, wheel, spinning boy, spin. Okay, if you are here and tinnitus pops up, let's just assume this is an ear, right? It's a very ugly ear. Tinnitus pops up. It means someone within, I don't even know the distance. Someone is nearby, right? Someone is nearby. Sometimes what they're doing is they're hiding inside buildings, so maybe here, or between pallets, or simply hiding because just hiding. What exactly should you do in this position? Even I don't know. But the main argument is tinnitus is an indicator that survivors are nearby, right? So you don't want to, if you're here, you don't want to expend all your speed boost. So let's say 2x speed boost used. You don't want to do that. What you want to do, even in an uncertain situation, you have to simply don't use your speed. Simply roll, because it does not take 18 or 20 seconds for you to roll to the other gate. Now, this is where it basically falls out of, my control or my theory, because you have to play certain matches to simply understand what made you lose, what made you draw, what made you panic, what made you think XYZ was the correct, decision to make when you could have done something else. So let's say you've made your way from this gate to this gate. You have basically everything off cooldown, everything ready to use. So even if you don't find someone, tinnitus rule, again, tinnitus here, survivor nearby, survivor near, red umbrella gate. What I would do in this situation, because it has already been 20 seconds plus, but you know that either gate is not opened. It's not open, it's not open. Because you know you've spent a little bit of time, unless they're tournament players, literally, unless they're tournament players, they would not wait out detention / wait out 2 minutes. They would not, unless they're tourney players. All right, don't directly quote this. So what you would do is, you're here, you speed wheel back to the other gate. Now, I would say 80%, 75 to 80% of the time, you would find survivors, or like at least one person here doing gate. Because unless, this is the rule to follow, unless they're tournament players, they would not know to be this smart on avoiding the gate. This is just rank, this is normal rank. Now, I think this is more or less it for Chinatown. Yeah. So, like I have always said, Chinatown S tier, right? Best wheel map. All right? Because it is very flexible when it comes to what builds you want to use. So let's just say this is the blood web, persona web, whatever you want to call it. So this very ugly. Don't judge me. So insolence, confined space, trump card, detention, right? You can run more or less any build. What I run is obviously left, right. So trump card, insolence. You could run insolence, confined space, but that kind of just loses value because, you have collapsible windows. Alternatively, meme build. You could run detention. You could. But I don't really see much of a point. Like, I would much rather run some kind of variant of trump card and then spam peepers. Peeper. Look at him. So cute. Wait, no, he only has one eye. I'm so dumb. Anyway. Peeper, yay! Anyway, you could also run weird variations such as confined space, trump card, but I don't really see the point. You could do another very unconventional build such as this, trump card detention, but I don't know. It basically defeats the purpose of variance reduction, which I will get into in a different map. More or less, yeah, this should be it for Chinatown. And again, if they, just to reiterate, if they choose some really interesting weird spawns such as a different flipped T-shape, such as this, you don't bother, just spawn here. If they for some reason spawn like this, you would definitely want to chase whoever is easiest or closest. You would spawn here and chase here. What else? If they box a survivor in, and let's say this is a decoder. This is red decoder. I said red. Red. Usually what you would do is, again, here. You would figure out whether if it's worth it to chase the rescuer under, or go into the hallway and then chase this person. Because majority of the time, if they're using a box spawn, they will be forced into a disadvantageous rotation. What is another different / weird spawn? If they pick it like this, again, same thing, standard procedure, you spawn top left. The reason why, okay, let's just assume any spawn, whether if it's here, or here. Why do I not suggest spawning here and here specifically? bottom left and top right. Reason being, again, rotation. It all falls back to rotation. This guy can just go here. This guy can just go here. This guy is unaffected. This guy is, let's just assume, strong rescuer. You're not chasing rescue. Again, you go here. This person rotates into good area. And so on and so forth. This guy, you're not chasing God Window. You're not chasing God Window. So yeah, this should more or less be the overview or in-depth on Chinatown. I guess, long story short, flipped T-shape, the most standard one that you would see across multiple matches and a multitude of hunters. If you're playing wheel, you spawn top left. Okay, next map is Moon River Park, also known as Moonlit River Park if you're an OG, old gens. Okay, standard spawns would be here, 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 and here. So that would be first stop, fourth stop, second bridge, I call it North, people also call it North Bridge, whatever, same thing. And then two-story, also known as Haunted House. Very standard spawn, we all know this. This is, I guess, universal. So wheel can spawn usually here or here. Now, why do you basically never see me spawn here towards the top right? It's simple. You won't chase rescuer, and you're not chasing first stop because they're gonna take the coaster, and then it's gonna be a lot of time wasted. So naturally, you begin here. So what exactly happens next? Let's just assign some rules at least. So rescue, kite, sometimes it's kite here and then decoder here, and then it's like vice versa, interchangeable, but let's just assume in this position decoder is here. I don't know, mind's eye. All right, mind's eye. So Merc TME and then two kiters. So you are wheel, you spawn here. What do? If you told me to chase TME, you'd be correct. And if you told me to chase the kiter, you would also be correct. Hear me out. Moon River Park is somewhat unforgiving because you have merry-go-round, you have God middle area with the single window and then two pallets, right? So that's two already. You have two-story, like the little two pallet area within, two-story. You have triple pallet, too good. Literally, wait, that's like quad pallet, I think. But you get the point. Pallet here, and then circus, and then this spam of windows. I could say it's like somewhat unforgiving, but due to the sheer size of it, I guess it can count as terrain advantage. So chasing the kiter at fourth stop or the rescuer at haunted house, it's a fine choice either way. So let's just go one by one, dissect this. If you're chasing TME, she's either hiding, so hide behind one of the curtains on here or on this side, right? Either side works. So if they're hiding and you're really unlucky, if the render distance is not on your side or you simply skill issue, you don't find the survivor somewhere around this area, it means you have to rotate, waste more time, try to find the other survivor on first stop. So naturally, I think I'll just do one step at a time. So from here, it's either the cipher spawns here or slightly on the open. Now, why does this matter specifically? Why does this matter? Because sometimes you would see in my gameplays, I would either go for a jump scare on the rescuer on the second bridge, or going here, and then abandoning and chasing the person on first stop. Because early game, it shows the outlines for all the ciphers. If it shows it's on the open area, it brings more leeway, it brings more flexibility. But if not, meaning it spawns here, it really is a coin flip at that point. It really is a coin flip between them camping here, waiting out the 30 seconds, or rotate to this one. But here's where it kind of falls apart, because if you, as wheel hunter, are chasing from this direction, person at first stop will not rotate. Person at first stop will stay here. Camp out the 30 seconds. Now that is why let's just assume this spawn is the correct one. Let's just assume this cipher machine on the open area is the one. So do this. That would mean jump scare the rescuer, and then we move straight to this. Usually, again, I'm saying usually a lot because you can't really predict 100% or control what the survivor is going to do. You can't like mentally force them to stay here the entire time. Maybe it's a lucky guy, I don't know, opening a chest, maybe. But it's either closer to here, easier chase, of course, or closer to coaster, harder chase. Now, back to the position. Let's assume you are standard chase, standard spawn, standard everything. You are chasing the decoder here. You land one spike on Mind's Eye. She vaults down, so vault after one spike. She vaults the window and 2-story. Her next order of operations is naturally going here, the pallet spam area. Because, as you may know, Wheel, just like most other hunters, he suffers from lack of line of sight. This is relatively doable, but this area with the L-shaped wall is, it's a nightmare. Because you can't aim your traps properly, but that's more mechanical. So back to theory, back to class. This is more or less taken care of, and the rotation from under to upper is also more or less taken care of, and then likewise the jump scare tech to the rescuer, and then to first stop is also taken care of. Now, why did I say at the start chasing the person at fourth stop to be a viable choice? Here's the thing. This is where we start moving into big unknowns. Now, I'm aware that a lot of maps on tier lists, so you got S, A, B, C, and then so on and so forth. I would consider, because Chinatown is the only one on S tier, is the only map with a lot of advantages, to the point where if you ban certain survivors, it really doesn't matter who you ban, because you already have a lot of terrain advantage. Now, Moon River Park, also known as, belongs in A tier. Why is that? You have no collapsible windows. You have so many strong areas. Here is also kind of a hassle. Here kind of, here, and of course here. First stop is like questionable, because first stop is like a transitional area. So technically it's just, well, you already get my point. You see the point. Point is, there is a lot of strong areas on the map. So anything under S tier, it means advantages mostly come from yourself. It comes from skill. And as opposed to S tier, so Chinatown being terrain advantage. Two of those, vastly different. Right? Vastly different. Which leads me to my point, being if you chase the person at fourth stop, if they're not dumb, they ride the merry-go-round, or carousel, whatever you want to call it. I call it merry-go-round. They ride the merry-go-round. You lose. Why is that exactly? Merry-go-round is a very special kind of map exclusive thing. For this map at least. You can't get them off, or you can't spike them in wheel form. So let's just draw a really ugly wheel form wheel. You can't spike them off. Full presence doesn't work. Full presence doesn't work. But now we're talking about early game. Early game, if they know which little horse to tap, to hop on, and they successfully abuse the hell out of merry-go-round, you will take so much time swapping forms, swapping back, swapping forms, etc., etc. You will lose. You will lose. I've had this happen sometimes. Sometimes. Not frequently, but sometimes. So as soon as you see that, drop everything you're doing and move. Rotate away. Don't go straight into two-story. Don't go straight into two-story. Because it's too obvious. At least for me, this is how my mental works when I'm playing wheel at such a high level. Don't move into two-story because they would already know as soon as they see the ping, hunter change target, they just move out. That's more than enough time compared to when you first spawn in. I hope I'm making at least some shred of sense. So what you do, you move the hell out. Let's just assume it is mercenary. You don't want to chase merc. You are already at a disadvantage because, simply put, the survivor knew how to abuse exclusive map terrain thing to their advantage. So you're going to rotate to the upper, and then to here, and then chase the person at first stop, which realistically will land you either a 60, blink, forced down, or 80. All right? Simple position. Now, how about if, let's say it is to the platform itself. So in-game it's called platform 4. What if they take the platform? You follow along. You follow suit. Just follow suit. This is usually a very standard them dropping down, dropping this pallet. Not in wheel form at least. So you would just play around here, and depending on if you're good at controls, you would secure the down relatively fast, 50 to 70-ish, right? Same thing if they choose to go from this side, different way of rotating. This is like slightly less effective, let's say like around 10%, but standard procedure. Get the down, and they crawl to corner, and then that's like extra few seconds bought, so it's like 55, 60, right? Now, let's say the position is, I would say, lawyer, kiter, and then kiter, and the rescuer is journalist. Journey, right? And then you spawn here. If you told me to chase journalist first, you'd be correct only if you brought the correct build to confined space. Confined space makes this first chase much easier simply due to the fact that these two windows, although they may seem underwhelming, is very strong in the early game. Now, why is that? I mean, it's pretty obvious, right? T-shaped wall, T-shaped wall. It makes sense. No matter the rescuer is being played, no matter if it's a very easy chase, a medium chase, or first officers or something like that, they will more than likely either be heading to this side from the rotation or staying around here so they can initiate hiding windows as soon as they see you rolling your ass straight to them. All right, that's that. Let me see. Usually this is the spawn's survivor's pick. They don't really stray much off from this one because anything else, they would put themselves at a disadvantage. But let me see. There is probably this. Yes. So the person spawning on second stop to activate the light. So what exactly do you do here? If you told me here, 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 to anywhere else other than same spot, you'd be wrong. So do not mind the survivor spawning here, because you apply the same thing you learned. It's either last stop, so fourth, or haunted house, 2-story, or jump scare. Now this is where it gets slightly more interesting, because if you're choosing to jump scare second bridge, the person who just activated the lights has basically nowhere to go. So it's like either way, you're forcing potential rotation. You're forcing potential mind games on the survivors to think, will the wheel chase me? Said the person here. Will the wheel chase me? Said the person here. And will the wheel chase me? Said the rescuer at second bridge. So either way, you're rotating, and you're forcing them to face their wrath, essentially. Face your wrath, because they chose to be greedy by activating second stop. Now, there's another way to look at this is, obviously they can't fully tell what hunter is being played, in hindsight, because, that's just how rank works. But this is why I'm a very big advocate for when you're getting this map, always choose standard. Standardize everything. Simplify your position. Do not overcomplicate. Do not say, what if? Do not say, oh, I can activate the second stop with light. Do not say, I want the entire team to spawn in basically a line. Here. Don't have weird reverse hypothetical reverse theoretical thoughts like this, because this is when you basically make the whole team lose. All right? So back to the position, to the position, I mean, if you spawn here, let's say, this is an interesting take, a very interesting kind of take, because you're basically making it seem that you are realistically going to be having the survivor at fourth stop being your first target. Now, this is risky because, again, merry-go-round, abuse, right? But usually, it's also a matter of mental gymnastics, because it's like a they don't know, you don't know them kind of thing, back and forth. So they might just have less time to calculate, to effectively map out what their kite is going to look like. So they might just go here, and hopefully Rod can find space because got 2 windows. And of course, they can go straight somewhat to you and then start their kite at the middle area. And anywhere else, I think it's like slightly a disadvantage because you have nothing to work with here. And of course, you're not gonna go straight towards me, right? So that's one way. If you spawn here, it's like, it makes sense, but it also doesn't make much sense because line of sight comes into play, because the survivor spawning at 2-story would be just already be at the stairs. So you would not know if they're hiding behind this side of the tent, this side of the tent, crouching over here, or already taking stairs. It might work depending on another hunter or like different hunters, but for real, no thanks. No thanks. This one slightly makes sense. So 1 square closer to the rescuer. It's usually if it is a target you are like dead set on chasing. So in that case scenario, journalist. Oh my god, I can't write. Journalist, right? So naturally you would chase here. More or less, this is kind of how this map works. There's not really much you can do in terms of differentiating your spawns, except trying to keep it, standardized. You have kiter here, decoder, or, you know, interchangeable, and then your rescue at second bridge. So rescue, because if, let's say, this one here, match goes, and then you down the person somewhere around here, you chair the person at, where is it, this one. So that means the rescuer has to go all the way from here, move. So I would say if they're not playing mercenary or first officer or just a strong rescue in general, you as wheel, you're here. You can realistically abuse this situation, especially true if you have wanted order. You can try to map out where exactly they're coming from. So here, or a very popular way of rescuing this is going from here and then into the haunted house. So if you're able to block them off, put one spike, two spike, depending on if it's mercenary or first officer, because they have like strong rescue abilities, you naturally pull back. So this, you're here, get the two spikes somewhere around like roughly here or like around here, and then you pull back to the chair, and then this is usually a win position. The theory for this one is not as strong, because you can't always necessarily maintain such a mindset of, oh, the survivor will guarantee go in an area that is easy for me to spot them out, and therefore I'm going to get enough spikes to down them or prevent the rescue. Because, obviously, it's an asymmetrical 1v4 game. It's never so black and white. See this survivor? That's right. Even if a rescue is foiled, rescuer can't go. You have enough spikes to down him or prevent the rescue. Person at first stop can go. Either way. When you're either focused on getting the second or third spike somewhere around here, or when you're heading back, the person from first stop would have already got rescue done. Pretty self-explanatory. Very self-explanatory. So you can't always expect things to go by the book when you've played by the book, if that makes sense. So, logically speaking, any other spawn doesn't really make much sense. It's usually just this or this between survivors. So sandwich. Yeah, I gone over this one as well, and anything else I think is just kind of a disadvantage, really. Not really much for me to explain, because first, for this one is line of sight. You lack line of sight to not, you know, see the rescuer where they're heading towards. For this one, it's like you're in the middle of basically a war zone. If you go here, they can rotate. If you go here, they take host doors, so it's like whatever. And realistically, there ain't no way you're chasing two-story, because again, line of sight. For this spawn, I have never seen anyone pick this, because not only does it make no sense, it's just it's kind of the same standard procedure of like spawning here, really. So it's like, who cares if you want to be funky? I guess it's your loss, really. I think it's time to move on to exit gates. So the gates are here and then here. Basically two completely different sides of the map. This is a lot of distance. A lot of distance. This is like 67 million meters. Yes. Oh my god, cancel me now. This distance is really big. And considering it is basically symmetrical in terms of like mirroring, I would say it's like kind of balanced somewhat. So let's just say again, three serves remaining and the gates are activated. Usually you accept the draw position. You accept the 2K. But of course, there is hatch spawns. Here, middle, and then corner. So that's 5. So this map is very unforgiving when it comes to your late game strategy, your planning, and when like how to not panic is what I'm trying to say. Because you have 5 dungeon locations, right? All in pretty, I would say like 50-50 spreads around the map. So how exactly do you handle this? You will accept the 2K. 2K secure. Do not care about anything else except your 2K draw. Alright? So this is a very volatile position for either side, hunter and survivor alike. Because you can't greed if you have, let's say, someone on chair, triangle, so someone on the rocket chair, one person is already on this side and 2 people already here, so it's like, yeah, you can't just risk the thing. No, please stop. For survivors, accept your 2 escape. For hunters, accept your 2K, all right? Now, the other side is true. On the flip side, it is very easy to turn an uncertain position. So, a 2K can turn into 3K victory. Now, this is where the asymmetrical aspect of, IDV comes into play. You're never so sure if, how do I explain this? You have someone sitting on chair over 50, over phase 2, and the survivors from all the way on the other side rescue, right? They rescue. Oh my god. And then it's like a back and forth. How do I visualize this? I can't really visualize it, but I'll just try my best to explain. You have chair state, several of them on one person and another person, all right? And you're going back and forth between the 2 gates. Let's just say general, all right? Generalized. You're going back and forth. You down another person, and then the final rescue happens. The final rescue happens on, let's say, here. So, once you head back to this gate on last stop, you chair, and then you get your 2K. So usually what happens in this position, is they're trying, survivors, so 2 people left, right? Survivors trying to rush as soon as possible, escape, obviously, right? To the other gate. Now, this is where it also obviously gets very complicated because you have so much, hatch locations and uncertainty of what their kit allows, right? Some survivors have stronger late game kits to use, such as, Aeroplanist, he can hover, Patient, he has hook, right? Makes sense. So if you're lucky, you already have your 2K. You have your 2K ready. It's already secured. You catch a survivor, let's say around, I don't know, here. That's your 3K. You get the down, and they leave with a one escape. Oh god, that's so ugly. 1 escape. There you go. Or if you're unlucky, they are at hatch. So let's say this person already left, so escape, and they can be anywhere. They can be here, or even here. So pick your poison. Pick your poison when you're trying to play late game scenario in this on this map. Now, again, this map is A tier. It's fine, but any map that isn't Chinatown, it falls under a category of it depends all on your skill. It is an A tier map, but it doesn't mean that you can go in without being prepared, without having the proper build or the mindset, and etc. And also enough theory to, know who to chase, what tech to use, jump scare tech, rotate away, look at the cipher spawns, if it's bad areas, and so on and so forth, right? So Chinatown is, Moon River Park is A tier. There you go. Okay, next map is Eversleeping Town. Let's start with the spawns. So this will be pretty standard. Same flipped T-shape. So, what exactly do you do here? Let's just jump straight into it. If you say here, here, actually wait. So here, graveyard, here, or even here, you'd be kind of wrong. The only true viable spawn would be here. Unless you're fighting mechanic. Because mech spawns here. So you would probably pick this because it leaves the most amount of flexibility for her to hide the bot. So whether you're going here, she will rotate into this. And if you're spawning here, she will take corner house. All right. Back to the position. You spawn here. What next? If you're running a left-right build, you would chase here. If you're running left up, you spawn. You chase here. So what would happen is, let's assume you run Insolence Confined. The person spawning on the right side will rotate naturally towards graveyard. They vault the window, and then you vault the window. You have 20 seconds to land 2 spikes. Get it down. Usually it's 50 or 60 seconds. Not really much else to it. Now, if you're running a slightly more risky build, which is left-right, you chase the person here. So what would happen is, you have to play your cards right. You can't break pallet for no reason. You can't vault for no reason. You have to first land 1 spike, and depending on rotations, they would drop the pallet first. And then from there, you human form back to wheel form, right? From there, you break the pallet that was dropped down. That is technically a god pallet. So then you have a much easier time because they would realistically be rotating towards the outside of the map, which is a double pallet. And then you secure it down. You're down, right? So let's just say this is decode, this is kite, and this is rescue. What if you have a different appetite? What if you tell me, I want to chase the rescuer at middle? You could. Now tell me, what if the rescuer rotates because there's no cipher at the middle? Let's say what if there's no cipher at middle, so he rotates to the geisha house. Middle, let's say. Do you commit and have a hard time because they're going to rotate naturally to graveyard, and you have to spam swapping forms and just waste a lot of time? Or you simply chase the person at the top? If you told me the second option, you'd be correct, because it's usually cipher spawns here or here. So more or less, due to the distance, right? This is basic human psychology. If the hunter is really, really far, so here, the person, so the decoder at the topmost spawn, he would not care as much. He would simply not care as much. It really depends, because if your spawn pick is here and your cipher lock is lucky, you block off this entire area. So that would mean the decoder has to go here, basically, right here. Or if you're slightly unlucky, but you're still gonna target swap, they're gonna be here. So you've failed your initiation on chasing the rescuer at middle, or you get lucky. You get really, really lucky. The rescuer, the middle area does have a cipher, right? It's dead center. And in this case, the rescuer has to rotate in basically a trash area. Really, really trash. So usually what would happen here is, because your your chasing trajectory, your path is basically straightforward. You didn't really bump into many things. You didn't waste too much time. The rescuer is in a very, very weak area. You could usually capitalize on getting 3 spikes. So 3 spike. Because in this situation, you would assume they only have one single tide turner user. So tide user, you got her down or him down, and then either person goes to rescue. Let's just say you chair on this one right next to the wall. All you have to do is just simply simplify the position. You don't have to prevent rescue by getting 2 spikes. You don't have to. All you have to do is basically simplify the position because you already have a lot of presence. You already have 3 spike plus basic hit plus another 75 damage. So a single spike on the non-dedicated rescue. And because you have insolence, you get full presence. All right? And then from there, the timer. So, no, not in black. Can't see. In-game timer, so the clock, right, is already in your advantage because you're simplifying the position. You're simplifying something that many people tend to overlook. So around that time, when you are phase 2, when the rescuer is at phase 2, the surrender clock or even the trump card switch clock is still before 120 seconds, so before 2 minutes. I know this is somewhat hard to understand for like newcomers, but for my at least slightly more advanced intermediates or high tiers, you would know. You would know. All right. Wait. Do this. Okay. So what if it is mechanic? If it's mechanic, you spawn here always. You could take old corner house. You could. You very well could. But that just leaves this somewhat god window, and then these 2 pallets in case she wants to let her bot loose. And eventually, if by whatever means you mess up or she has like window boost or something, she rotates to graveyard, and essentially it's just bad day, pretty bad day. So essentially, I would say corner house is slightly easier to chase compared to here being rotation area and then graveyard inevitably. So you spawn here, you attack the bot, get some presence, or you down her instead and then she messes up and then you get the free bot down. Your match goes on. Now the reason why I'm saying this spawn and this spawn make no sense, oh my god, that X is huge, is mostly because the game kind of knows, it kind of calculates the distance between survivor and hunter. So if you spawn over here, bottom left, the person you are most realistically gonna chase and they are realistically most likely gonna rotate is person here. So that means they're gonna be already here. So it's either they can go back, loop the god pallet, or go on a longer loop on the 2 pallet area. Now, another spawn which is somewhat unorthodox, but I would not necessarily say it's like that bad, would be here, by completing the plus shape. You very well could, but everyone's gonna be on edge and ready to rotate. The person on here would have like slightly easier time. The person on here, well, they can just go corner house or graveyard inevitably. And you're not chasing person in middle house because, you spawn all the way here. You have to rotate all the way here. You have to enter the building without bumping into things, without slowing down your momentum. And in the end, again, they rotate into graveyard. So if you're spawning on the leftmost middle, so middle left, it usually means you are dead set again on a specific target, or like any target is fine, which means let's put a very, very, very specific example, but possible, very plausible. So for team comps, let's just say female dancer, okay, journalist, so journey, magician, and then I can't even think, enchantress. All right, so somewhat standard kind of, I wouldn't even say this is standard, this is just a quick example I made. But if you're spawning on left middle, it usually means you're set on chasing anyone. You're fine with chasing anyone because you're allowing early game rotations. Anyway, more or less for this map, I would be running left up, right? So confined space is very versatile on this map because you can block off this window, you can stomp down this pallet really fast, and then you can get the blink down, whatever. Pallet here, here, here. You have to at least break the middle one because that's really strong, and then you can just loop around a one time, and then you can use your trap and then get your down pretty fast. These two pallets, they need to be removed pretty fast, so you have your fast pallet breaking. And then mostly for early game chase, if you're going after a person on the right middle, you can vault graveyard once, and then you should be fine. If you use left, right, so insolence trump card, it's up to you. It is completely up to you and your playstyle, obviously, because it's possible that certain wheel mains would just simply spawn here, no matter the case. Like they're running left right build and they just always like to pick here. It's fine. It's completely fine, because sometimes this area and this area is not necessarily a mirror area, but I kind of get the point. I get the vision, right? So you would chase the person on your left, and so this person would kite around here, and then they would eventually rotate into this 2 pallet area when this one's broken. Depends. And then you would exhaust your blink because you don't have fast pallet breaking, and they would pull a lot of distance, and if you really mess up, they can rotate into corner house and then drop god pallet eventually, and that'll be like in 80 seconds. 70 to 80 second down. All right. More or less, this is for the standard spawn. All right. Now we're gonna move on to a somewhat more unorthodox one. So it'll be this. It kind of looks like a smile, doesn't it? Maybe. All right. So smile spawn, which is corner house, middle, right middle, and then graveyard. What you would do in this situation is any other spawn is bad. It is a mistake. The reason why, again, the same rule as before. You simplify the position. You simplify. You spawn here. You spawn on leftmost middle. The reason why is assuming you have cipher lock. Graveyard is locked. Graveyard is locked. All right. And if you're facing a team comp that is relatively easy to deal with, so like unless if it's like double rescue such as first officer and then weeping clown, you would relatively have an easier time chasing the person at corner house, so right on top of you. All right, that's that. It's not really that hard to understand. Okay, what is another spawn? There's also this one. I'm not sure if this is even like if it is counted as viable or just like a kind of pocket pick for this one, but basically standard position except the person spawns graveyard. For this, again, don't overcomplicate. simplify the position. Here is fine. So the same as last one, leftmost. And actually, this time, bottom left becomes viable. Because whether if you spawn on top, so leftmost middle, or even bottom left, graveyard generally would be blocked off. So here, right? The reason is simply because of the time that you're able to buy by blocking off graveyard. So even if your first chase is the person in front of you, the time bought back is relatively fine in terms of who you're chasing. You could also quickly rotate into middle, assuming it is an ideal target you want to chase. Eversleeping Town is very interesting. It is a very it's probably one of the most notoriously asymmetrical maps and of the game, and also like it is heavily it has a heavy misconception based around it, because many people think this is Wheel's best map, which is wrong. It's a good map. Best is Chinatown, all right? So the reason why I'm saying this is, of course, it's a relatively, spacious map. You have a lot to work with, right? It is a pretty big map. The reason why someone might say this is a neutral map, for example, a survivor high tier would say this is a neutral map, is simply due to the fact that where's the gate? Here, I guess. So that's the gate and this is the gate. So the gate distance between one another is, I would say, kind of short, actually. The gate distance is kind of short. All right. So I won't make it too complicated, but I will just bring up a very niche and very, very specific loss I experienced not long ago in season 41. So it was patient, it was psychologist, it was priestess, and then someone else, I forgot. So these 3 survivors that I mentioned, what they did was, patient uses the dash towards psychologist, psychologist uses her dash towards patient, and those 2 run towards priestess portal, I think, here. So this portal leads from here to here, and then here to here. All it took was 1 kit usage, 2 kit usage, and then 3.5, I would say, 3.5, for them to turn a position that was supposed to be a draw, supposed to be 2k, into a 3 escape, simply because I forgot to ban, or I overlooked a really, really good priestess player that was chosen to be played on this map. So just a very, very quick reminder, which is the gate distance on Eversleeping is not generous. It is really not generous. If you chair right outside, or if you chair here, you chair on the wall, or maybe even on corner house, you may get screwed. You may get screwed even here, definitely here. So Eversleeping Town is unforgiving when it comes to gate distance. All right, keep that in mind. Burn that into your memory. All right. Apart from that, there is not really other unorthodox spawns. Except if you want to purposefully give yourself a disadvantage and maybe like spawn here. Like, I don't know. Obviously, it's not how it works, because you're taking specific areas that are strong, which is here. So you would spawn here, and the middle is for the rescuer to rotate, and then you spawn here. You can go either left or right, makes sense. And then here, you're the safest here, because you're in a 2-story area, line of sight, and you can rotate into graveyard naturally. And of course you have this. I don't really know, like I mean I haven't really studied this position exactly much, but I would just assume it's you're assuming it's like a specific hunter and you want to just stay the hell away, or you want to stay in a really strong area, which is obviously graveyard. But yeah, Eversleeping Town is an A tier map, and this is probably the last map belonging in A tier. It's a good map, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of open space, open space, very, very open. You can use your speed boost freely and, get around the map. But I guess just one thing to take note of is your builds. Personally, I run left up, but alternatively, left, right is okay. It is fine. But you just have to be aware of certain areas requiring you to break a pallet, or just for the survivors to gain distance from, simply dropping a pallet, which is this one, this one, this one, this one. Usually they drop 2 or 3 sometimes, but it's like the ones over here, and then these 2. Right? So yeah, this will be it for Eversleeping Town. Okay, now we're gonna move on to probably my most favorite pocket pick of a map. Leo's Memory. Leo's Memory. Center spawns would be here, 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 and here. So what would happen is you spawn bottom right 99% of the time, basically all the time. Now this map kind of gets really interesting because let's say decoder, rescuer, kite, and then kite. The decoder, sometimes he gets really good RNG and he spawns on top of these stairs. So decoder is here, right? So that would mean if you choose to chase factory and they're already on the stairs, you can just simply rotate away, go into middle, and from here it's either cypher spawn dead center or slightly on the left side. Now, what if you want to chase the person at open? So just straight up. In slightly lower tiers, / if the person doesn't know what he's doing and just immediately starts to touch the cypher, goddamn, that's harsh. You can just chase really freely. You can play around this single pallet, double pallet area, and then they might just rotate into the spot, which is the 2+1 pallet. So 1 really weak one and then 2 really strong one. Right, pretty standard. Now there's another way this can unfold. If you're chasing upper and the survivor is smart enough, they rotate towards the side and they take God Kite. This is when you have to ask yourself, will you commit? Because assuming you're running the only correct build, which is left up, right? Same as always. Confined space and then insolence. You ask yourself the question, will your discipline / patience be enough on wanting to commit on survivor here, right? If you choose yes, that means you're gonna commit, and you will have to vault win it once, slowly but surely get it down. So usually, even for me, if it is this scenario, it will be a 60-second down at least, which is a lot of time spent. But alternatively, if they go towards top right, that means you can have more leeway on traps on this pallet and then on this pallet equally. Now, what I would recommend is you get 2 spikes, because if you get 1 spike, they can rotate again to God Kite. They can do that. So this is more or less for bottom right spawn. All right. Now there's a difference. There's a different spawn, a kind of variant that some people like to choose depending on survivors, which is they put someone on the left middle. It's an okay spawn, definitely, it's fine, but again, we go back to the same theory as before, which is preferred survivor chases, preferred first chases. If it is 4 survivors that are fine to chase by you, that means you can definitely spawn on the top left, because you can just go under. Or if the cypher spawn is unlucky for the person at middle, you can just go chase middle. Now the reason why this spawn is not as effective is you can just simply spawn here. Simply put, it really doesn't matter. It is the same rotation as I explained at the beginning. Go here, and if they're not on stairs, you just commit. You fully commit. You absolutely full commit on this person here, if you have good RNG. If not, same thing. Go here, and then you rotate out of factory. Now back to the center position. Why would you not want to spawn here? Why would you not want to spawn on left middle? It is simply because you're playing wheel. You're not playing basic hit hunters such as Wax, Disciple, Ripper, etc. Right? You're not gonna spawn this side because it's not practical. Neither would you spawn here, here, and maybe here? Question mark? Kind of. Now, for these 2 areas on the left corners, it's kind of self-explanatory. So first on this shack, line of sight, and then here, line of sight, right? Makes sense. Now, realistically, you would not spawn here. Realistically, you would not spawn top right, because more or less the person at shack can just rotate into God pallet area, triple pallet I mean, and then the person at mid right can just rotate into God area. So it's like, what's the point? You're shooting yourself in the foot. Now, this is more or less the very most like standard spawns, except there may be sometimes there may be a moment in your career of playing wheel that they pick L shape. They most definitely could. They could. Now, what do you do here? If you told me here, you'd be wrong. If you told me here, you'd also be wrong. Here, wrong. Here, so wrong. You would simply spawn here. Middle right. Because, it's funny, if the person on bottom right chooses this spawn, they're flipping you off, they're giving you a middle finger, you give them one back. You give them a middle finger right back. You will say, I don't care about your shenanigans, I will chase you. You'll be my first target. I hope that makes some sense. Anyway, now we can move on to the gates. Now, for this map, is like kind of self-explanatory. There's really not much to go over except try not to bump into a lot of obstacles. Use your speed wheel sparingly and navigate around. So where is it? Gate is here, and then here. It's like somewhat close to each other. There is like a decent bit of spacing, and also obstacles. So you can't have a direct path to it because there's shack blocking it. There's quite a stuff at middle as well, and there's like this tiny kite area. Now, for this map, let me try to remember. Hatch spawns here, shack, this corner, and then Christmas tree. So 5 spawns. It kind of goes back to the same topic of Moon River Park. Except the two gates are somewhat close to each other. Except there is, shack blocking it. For this map, even for me, it's hard to consistently be able to accept that you will be, for example, there's a survivor here. You will be chasing / securing your 2K. So let's just assume again, it's a 3-man late game. So you can't always assume, this is especially true for this map, you can't always assume that you will have a smooth time chasing one survivor during late game scenario, because again, they have a lot of resource to work with, and they have a lot of strong hatch areas to get to, especially since I was gonna say this is a somewhat small map, and the hatch spawns are not really spread out that evenly. So let's say you're chasing, you end up here, bottom left. They take factory, and then you're behind them, you're trailing behind. They already made it hatch. They escape. For Leo's memory, it really is a take your 2K kind of map. Settle for your draw kind of map. Even for me, if I'm playing in high tier, like above 100 stars, if the match is more or less looking like a draw, you just secure your draw position, your 2K secure. Because more often than not, the match is decided in the early game. So 0 to 80 seconds of the start of the match. So this is your early game. If you perform well and you get, like, let's say 60 seconds and under for your first down, you can at least guarantee your draw position, your 2K, and then the two survivors barely escape. If you do worse than 80 seconds, if you do worse than this, expected loss. Simply put, expected loss. This map it's fine compared to Red Church or even Arms Factory, because you do at least have some leverage in, movement. So movement around this map, only if you can control well by not, crashing into a bunch of obstacles. Because, like, even then, if specifically for late game scenario, if you're fighting 3 survivors and then the exit gates are activated, you just have to pray that, simply put, dungeon RNG is on your side. Because even in high tier, it happens rarely in low tier, but in high tier, which is Hydra and above, so maybe 50 plus stars roughly, you will find certain. So this map is one of those maps that gives me really bad RNG when it comes to dungeon spawn specifically. Because even if let's say you play your cards right, you secure a 60-second down, or even 55, let's just put it at that, 55-second, you secure it down, the match flows like it naturally does, and the person, the third survivor, well, the second survivor you're trying to eliminate has already one chair phase, right? One chair phase. It really doesn't matter, because they have a lot of resource to work with, and the spacing, well, relatively between this one, and this one, the spacing is really, really generous. It is genuinely quite generous. So that means if it spawns here, if it spawns at shack, and you are trying to catch a survivor near this gate or this entire area, you are more or less cooked. I would be cooked, realistically. All right. So overall, for Leo's memory, it really is about, for late game strategies at least, it really is about, I'm kind of afraid to say this, or even admit, but it really is a tiny bit of RNG. And we all know no gamer likes some RNG in their game. More or less, the spawns would be like something like this. usual spawns would be like this, and then the occasional troll flipping you off and then picking your bottom right. But I don't really see people spawning like corners, like for example something ridiculous like this. No, I don't really see it often. But yeah, Leo's Memory is the first map that you will be seeing in B tier. It's really 50-50. If they had made the hatch spawns more, you know, fair, it would either be higher thanks to that or the terrain. I don't know, man. It's really hard to place this, but me personally, it's a nice pocket pick, especially if you're constantly getting hospital, red church, and then arms factory. It's like essentially a breath of fresh air. That's what I'm trying to say. Anyway, this will be it for Leo's Memory. Alright, next up we have Darkwoods. So this map is also facing a lot of misconception by its player base. It's not a trash map necessarily, and it's not the best map for wheel necessarily. Alright, so we're gonna move on to the standard spawn selections. So it looks something like this. Now, technically you could spawn here, at Hunter Shack, but the more common one would be at Lower Riverside. I think that's what it's called. Good lord, Darkwoods is such a rare map to get. Anyway, if you're spawning here, you can chase person under. So, right middle. If you want to go after the person at middle, I would kind of suggest not to, because considering the little window loop area next to them, so if you don't have the right build, you could probably avoid chasing person at middle altogether. Why did I not mention the person at top middle, so right next to you? I think it's pretty self-explanatory. They have the entire tree swing to use to work with. So these three little areas. And speaking of, the misconception that I see a lot of people bringing up on Darkwoods is, you know, 2-story areas, a bunch of obstacles, like hard to turn, essentially obstacles, a lot of lines and 90 degrees and like, you know, see where I'm drawing. So this and like, you know, even the one on the corner. So this one, you know, it's that you simply avoid those areas. You simply avoid them, right? Like you're not first chase, your first chase will not be at the topmost area. Like realistically, it won't, right? So you're most likely going to be chasing the mid right if you spawn top right. Now the other spawn, which I have been experimenting with quite a lot, is Hunter Shack. The reason why it's decently effective is you could very well bring up the argument of line of sight, but you can just take a couple meters outside and then you're already out of the building, and then you can directly go into a very open area, which is trying to spot out this survivor. Alright? Now the reason why spawning at Hunter Shack is somewhat effective is assuming you're running left-right. Now this is going to be a very reoccurring theme of the builds that you're running across all the maps, which is, of course, you know, left-right. I mean, left-up. My bad. Insolence confined is, if you're chasing here, you have one pallet, one other pallet here, and then window to vault here. It's doable. You can definitely play around here, simply because you have fast pallet breaking. So if you choose to chase the person here, you will have an easier time compared to chasing person here if you don't have confined space. It really is all about the micro differences, the simple differences. So in this case, builds or sub builds of insolence, right? You can run trump card insolence or confined space insolence. So in my case, I'd spawn here, bottom left. Now, why would this spawn not work? Give a couple seconds, right? Person here rotates to the trees. You will not chase. Rescuer. This person is safe because distance and trees, right? Trees. Okay? And this person rotates into Hunter Shack. Very self-explanatory. Now, what about this spot? It is more or less also self-explanatory. You don't chase rescue. You don't chase rescue. This person next to you has swings. This person has swings, all right? Now, what about this one? Personally, I've never selected this spawn regularly because unless, okay, this also falls under the category of 4 survivors equals any is preferred or fine to chase by you. So that means if you pick middle left spawn, you are fine with chasing person at middle, whether if it's a rescuer or a dedicated, non-dedicated rescue, it doesn't matter. It means you are fine with chasing person at middle. But it also falls under the category of if you're playing QS or something, or even a basic hit hunter such as Disciple, it always falls under that category, usually, again, because I'm a specialist that specializes in wheel, so I can only say if I'm playing Ripper, if I am potentially playing Ripper, I would probably spawn left middle. Anyway, now we're going to move on to anti-wheel spawns. There actually is one for this map. It's here, 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 and here. Now, if you spend a couple seconds and look at this, you would say, yeah, it kind of makes sense that this is a wheel counter kind of selection, because they've taken a good kiting area, rescuer spawns middle, always, good kiting area, and good kiting area. All right? So how exactly would you navigate this? How would you navigate this? If you told me here, 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 and obviously here, goddamn, you'd be wrong. You would be wrong. So it only leaves with this one, bottom middle. Now this is interesting because you are going inside of Hunter Shack when there's someone already in it. So how do you manage this spawn selection? How are you able to effectively block off certain areas or get the down very fast on the person in bottom left? Even for me, this is kind of a brain fart. Because you would know that there is one window here, there is one pallet here, and there is 2 story to work with. So either drop down there or down here, right? So this is when you have to cut losses. Again, back to the same topic from before. You have to cut losses. You have to accept that either they die in the corner over here, or they abuse line of sight on these 2 pallets over here, or they force you to rotate inside of the 2-story area, they drop down, and then they die somewhere around here. It will be a 60 seconds to 80 second down, right? Same concept. If they choose a spawn or a set of spawns that automatically brings you at a disadvantage, you can't really do much about it. So that means you have to make do of the most reasonable target to chase first. So in this case, it'll be bottom left. Oh my god, why am I drawing all the time? Lol. Honestly, there's not really other variations for Darkwoods, except for the standard one, and then the wheel counter, or like that is not necessarily exclusive for wheel counter. So this one, I'm sure other hunter mains who specialize in, other specialist hunters would easily tell me why or how that works in the comments. I haven't really seen any like different ones except for maybe this, where someone only just like one person spawns at Hunter Shack. It's not that different really. What about this spawn? No, it doesn't really make much sense. So yeah, for Darkwoods, there's not really much like spawns for you to stray out of. Straight off from the usual. Alright, anyway. Gate here. Gate here. So, late game scenario. How do you do this? Let's draw hatch. So it's the upper riverside, lower riverside, and then wait, am I forgetting? Should be here. I think that is, yeah, the hatch spawns. So it's 3. I would actually say this map's like late game potential is somewhat balanced. I'm saying somewhat because this one is like the farthest. Wait, should be here, yeah. Okay, so it's 4. Yeah, I would actually say this is quite balanced in terms of like the distance and the spread of the hash locations. So these. I guess it really depends on like the rotation that you have, and I'm throwing the word rotation around very like haphazardly, but it really is kind of how it works. If 2 people are here, or like around, okay, two survivors, right, SU, around this area, and then you are chasing here, they would realistically be able to escape from here, or slowly but surely rotate into here and then escape here. It's slightly better. Actually, no, I take it back. It is the exact same issue that Leo's memory is facing, which is, so yeah, it's a technically small map, and too many hash locations not being spread out enough. Yeah, it really just comes down to luck, but it might just be because like pure stats, the raw numbers of me not being put on Darkwoods enough. So that means mathematically I've had less matches where I lose to bad hatch RNG. I hope I'm making sense. Right? So this is more or less Darkwoods. And of course, it belongs in B tier, again, alongside Leo's memory. It's a fine map, not the best, not the worst. You definitely have to first study it a little bit. Obviously avoiding the strong areas, and then being cautious around this single swing. Line of sight in Hunter Shack, and then this window, always be really aware of the middle window, the L shape, and this other two-story area. And yeah, more or less, this will be for Darkwoods. Alright, next up, Lakeside Village. So without wasting too much time, I'm gonna just jump straight into the spawn selections. So this will be the standard small boat, shack, big boat, and then bottom for the rescuer. Now this map, I can slander it all the way to the ground because it is just such a cursed map to play with. It's complicated. I have a very complicated relationship with this map. It is most certainly cursed, but Luckily, it is still definitely better than Arms Factory or even Red Church. So you would spawn here. You would spawn closest to small boat. Alternatively, you could spawn on the right and try to chase big boat, but I would probably refrain from doing so because, you know, it's literally big boat. What can I say? You have to fight 2 little windows, and you have to fight a drop down over here, and you have to go down the stairs and then go up the stairs. It's quite a hassle. So my personal preference, it would definitely be on the left side. So what happens next? What happens next is you chase, obviously, the person to your left, which is small boat. This is where it gets really interesting. It can make or break the early game. The person spawning at small boat can either take left or right. So you would hear me say left or right all the time when I'm chasing a small boat on Lakeside Village, right? So essentially, let's go over the hard part. If they take right, so turn right, essentially it means they try to camp the window here, here, and then here, right? So if you didn't bring confined space, oh lord, it's probably realistically going to be a loss. Realistically, all right? So he forces you to vault this window, and then you guys go around, you vault this window again, and then you go around the boat itself, and then wait, so it's the window over here, and then the window over here, and then finally inside of small boat you vault again. That's 3 vaults. That's 3 entire vaults without swapping forms. And then you finally come around here, which has the twin pallet area. Wait, am I drawing it incorrectly? I don't really care anymore. Just, you know what I mean. The 2 pallets to work around with. And if you're really, like, unsure, if you're not confident enough in, you know, blocking enough windows, you can vault 4 times. 4 times. So let me just make sure. 1, 2, plus the small boat. Yep, 4 times. Up to 4 times if you're really feeling not confident enough. So that is if they take the right. I mean, if they take the right, you could either fully commit on this big hassle, or you swap to person on shack. So for this is really interesting. It can either spawn here or here. So now what would happen is the survivor who picked shack would probably just stay at shack because they know it's a wheel, and they know the wheel can probably just simply swap to here because it's much easier than chasing small boat, right? Or simply, if they're somewhat lucky, they don't go to here, they go to the slightly more open one, but this one is stronger because, again, pallet, window, and you can rotate into shore side. All right. Now, what if you get really lucky and the person chooses left? Just commit. If they choose left, you just commit. That's a relatively nice down. I would say it's still quite a bit of time that you have to invest. So realistically, for me, I would say like 50 seconds. It's definitely not uncommon to spend 60 and then blink. Oh my god. Blink. Alright, blink down on small boat. Pretty standard position, I would say. Now, another way to handle this is obviously, you don't instantly go after the person at shack. That's a mistake, right? This is mistake, all right? So if you choose the left middle spawn, you are preferably going after the person at small boat. Now, there is also another way to look at this. The rescuer, this map is probably the most rescuer dependent map ever for me. Now, why do I say that? So, kite, decode, rescuer. So, for this map, You have 3 extremely, extremely, extremely painful areas to chase at. Really, really painful. The only spot that is slightly less viable, but it's still really strong because you have the angled little barrel thing window, and then the one pallet and then one window, yeah, and then the 2 pallets on the side. No, it's only one. Yeah. Wait, no, it's 1 pallet and then another pallet. So yeah, this is how it looks like. So it's pallet, window, pallet, pallet. There you go. So it really comes down to what exactly are they playing for rescue. If they're playing Weeping Clown, it's going to be hard. If they're playing First Officer, it's going to be hard. If they're playing Mercenary, it's going to be hard. All right, I can keep repeating and repeating and repeating myself. If they're playing Journalist or Knight, very 50-50. These two equal very 50-50. Simply due to the fact, oh my god. Simply due to the fact that they have a really, really strong area. 1 pallet, 1 window, pallet, pallet. This entire terrain is a disadvantage if you're playing wheel and if you're chasing the bottom person, right? Alternatively, if it is a non-dedicated rescue, so let's say arrow, fire, investigator, so on and so forth, it's slightly easier, but my point remains, this spot is definitely easier than those 3, but it is still relatively difficult to chase on. All right. Now, we're going to move on to a different way of spawns. Line spawn. There's only one correct answer. There is only one correct answer. Everything else is false. Everything else is wrong. You spawn shack. The reason why all these other spawns fall apart is very simple. Extremely simple. Shack itself has 1 window, right? You're bringing confined space. Again, this goes back to the builds that we're running. Left up. Always left up, right? You reduce variance. You vault the window once, so vault, and then you just leave. You either chase person at mid left or person at mid right. There's nothing more to this position. There's nothing else for you to do in this scenario. All right. Now, more or less, this should be the easily more understandable variants for line spawn. Now, what if they do here? What if they do here? What if they put 1 person on the bottom? Then technically you could spawn here. You definitely could. You could. You very well could. Because the person towards your left is more bound to distance than if they were to spawn here, right? At shack. And same goes for the person under you. If it is their dedicated rescue, and if it's an easy target, such as, for example, journalist or knight, you can just go after them. All right? Now, what if it is something ultra weird like this? They choose shack, and they choose to put their dedicated rescue 1 tile above. This one is pretty self-explanatory. You would choose here the same spawn that I would personally pick. It just makes the most sense distance-wise, so you can just do this. And if it's okay, this is where it kind of makes sense to chase a hard rescuer, except maybe first officer, but even that, okay, this is like way too much under like brain dead hypothetical, but it's just, if we keep it strictly theory, if it is mercenary as rescue for this one, you can chase. You actually can. You actually can. Because more or less what is happening is he is in a very open area. Very open area. He can't go here, he can't go here, he cannot go here, stacking. He can't go here. He could go here, but he's open. He is very open. He's in an open area. So technically, you can go very, very slowly. This will be 80-second down for sure. You can go very, very slowly, get your first spike, swap forms, and then he would just take you all around the map. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. If you can secure the down, whether if you use Blink or not, doesn't matter. It's going to be a late down. So using or not using Blink, it really does not change it, the fact. It'll be an 80-second down, but you would have downed their rescuer, which is Mercenary. All right? Now, we move on to the strong areas on this map. Why it makes no sense to chase here, here, and here, more or less. So, Shack itself, we all know, it's really strong, right? It's a big-ass box, and you can rotate to here. We have one pallet and one god window. I would consider that to be a god window. And you can rotate into this, and then this entire spot to use. And then for a small boat, like I mentioned, this entire spot is for you to play around with. Well, the survivors to play around. And of course, big boats, I don't really think I need to explain it much. It's just 1 + 1 = 2. Very self-explanatory again. Now, when you are playing on this map, you must always keep in mind that naturally, this map puts wheel at a disadvantage simply because of terrain. Simply because of terrain. It's not as bad as Arms Factory or Red Church, but it is a terrain disadvantage map. So therefore, I explained earlier, if you're lucky, you're able to chase bottom. You will be lucky if you can chase bottom. For the other spawn variations, there's really not much. There could be this one. From there, you would spawn here, and again, try to keep this really short, sweet, and simple. Chase here. Any other variations, quote unquote? It's not really a variation. It's just a mistake in swans. Full corner. Something like. Oh, it's hurting my brain. Something like this. It's kind of a mistake. Don't do this. Something like this. Also a mistake. Please do not flip your spawns one tile away. All right, now we're gonna move on to exit gates. So it should be around like here. For late game strategy, this map is almost the same as Moon River Park because it is really, really far by distance. This is probably the furthest in terms of gate distance in all the maps in the whole game. And it is the same concept as Moon River Park. If you have 2K secure, and wait, is it 2K? No, it's 1K secure. 1K secure position. 2 survivors, 1 survivor, same thing, or vice versa. You get slowly but surely 1 phase, and then turns into 2 phase on chair. You can slowly turn it into a 3K victory. It really isn't about greed. It's just about making sure you don't spam all your speed wheels while going around the different gates, and also making sure that you either slug correctly, or chair correctly. All right. Another thing to take note of is because this map's terrain is slightly different from Moon River Park. You have some stuff here, big boat to work with, some stuff here. Well, actually, a lot of stuff here. Right? You see that? And then almost no stuff, just a tiny bit of stuff here. So what it means is it is generally harder to spot out or find survivors in the late game stages of the match, for this map at least, compared to Moon River Park. So that leaves one conclusion. Sometimes you are 2K secure, 2K done, and you have another survivor with phase 2. So one survivor, phase 2, and then one survivor is gonna let's just say he escaped. He escaped. One survivor escaped. You will have a lot of moments where you can't find this person. You can't find the person who is dead on last. Final chair. You can't find them. Simply because of how the map is designed. So that means they either escape from one of the many hatch locations. So let's just put here, middle, here, here. Yeah, should be it. Yeah, I think it is for... Wait, no, it's also this one. 5. So you can't find, for the life of you, the person who is dead on last. And then the one survivor escapes from gate, and then the other survivor escapes from either this one, this one, this one, this one, or even this hatch. So it's kind of a double-edged sword for Lakeside, definitely. But keep in mind that if you really think, if the position and mentally, if you're just thinking it's all it's gonna bring me is just a draw, then sure, just take the draw. It doesn't really matter because at least you didn't lose, right? On the bright side, you didn't lose, right? So I think, yeah, this is more or less it for Lakeside. Let me just double check really quickly. Yeah, there's not really much weird spawns. Like maybe this? It could be. No, this is very unorthodox. They're literally giving away big boat. But even then you would even for this you would probably spawn here. You would probably spawn shack. But it does not make sense simply because they're giving away big boat and they will be in the open right side of the open right area. So it makes no sense. But even then you would probably spawn shack. So that means you can chase either person on left middle or right middle. And that means the right middle person would be at a disadvantage because they chose to be outside of big boat. Anyways, yeah, this will be it for Lakeside Village. All right, next up we have the dreaded Sacred Heart Hospital. Hospital is such a hard map, man. Let's just begin with the standard picks for the spawn selection. This is without a doubt probably the most universally hated map for hunters, at least, and it is widely considered as the most survivor-sided, simply because of one singular big building on the map, you know, the hospital itself. Anyway, we're gonna just jump straight into this. Standard flipped T-shaped spawn. You would spawn, you would pick shack, so top right. The reason why this spot is out of bounds, this spot is generally, I would say like 60 to 70% out of bounds. So you would probably be left with only chasing this person or this person. So right middle or bottom middle. So how exactly would you navigate this? How exactly would this work? Sometimes, let's just say it is a variation. So rescuer, kiter, decoder. Sometimes this is flipped. Sometimes this is flipped. But let's just run with a harder variation. So the rescuer spawns here, right under you. And that means your preferred chase is over here. Now, they would know this. They would be aware they're in the weakest area because we all know this bottom 3 square is weakest on hospital, right? So what would happen is they either rotate into here or they stand their ground and they use the little window area here with the 2 pallets. So here and here, right? Now, generally, all right, let's just assume these 2 are just flipped, so interchangeable. Generally, when you're playing as a wheel on this map, you have to play very, very safely. You have to play very, very safe. You have to know what you're doing. You have to be patient. You have to have good discipline. So let's just assume this is a regular chase target, right under you. It can go both ways. It can go both ways. They can either abuse the tree, the little pillar thing, or they can just hug this entire area really tightly. And then it'll be like, I would say like 50-ish seconds. 50-ish. And like, it's hard because in hospital, they can rotate very, very easily. Like from here to here. So like here, go to here. And then ruins into shack. And then once they're done, go straight into hospital. In hospital, they can go birdcage. And if needed, they can go into this corner. Hospital is such a free rotation map, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, so back to the position. You're playing as wheel. You're chasing this target. It will be a very standard down for sure. So you just chair right on this spot, and that means the rescuer will go in. It's obviously really easy to spot them. That's why they would probably try to like stay right around the corner, right around this area, right? So if they see you doing your move, they would rush in. They would go early. But they won't like instant save. That's what I'm trying to say. So either way, after they get the save done, so let's save, tide turner, they will go shack. They will kite shack unless it's basement. But either way, you don't really care much about basement if you're playing wheel. But that's just like a much different topic I've covered in my past guides. Anyway, so it's generally they go into shack, and they're slowly but surely trying to die closer to ruins, make their lives easier, make your life harder. So what you would do in this situation is pray. Again, the same build. You would pray that you have left up. You would pray that you have confined space or pallet eater for specific purposes or similar purposes. So this is usually gonna result into a draw because terrain disadvantage and lack of target swap or preferred targets in your early game. All right. Now let's backtrack a little bit. Let's say same concept. 4 survivors equals all fine to chase. All right. So all 4 of these are okay survivors to chase. Where would you spawn? You have a couple seconds. If you told me here, you'd be actually correct. You would actually be correct. Because it doesn't matter if this survivor above you rotates into shack. It doesn't matter. Because you would have this person to be able to chase. Now, I also got to quickly get the cipher lock out of the way. So like cipher lock if you spawn here, if you spawn. It really doesn't make any sense to care much about cipher lock for this map specifically. So I have to write this down specifically because some people might OCD into believing cipher lock is like the biggest meta stomp. Cipher lock, this map equals not OP. It's not super strong. It is not mandatory. That's it. So in this case, if it is 4 okay survivors, 4 fine survivors, that would mean you are able to spawn here. You're able to spawn bottom right. Because what will happen is, if the person rotates into hospital, it means it's either birdcage cipher or dead center cipher spawn. So usually, what the person spawning bottom right would do is, out of courtesy, they would not stack with their teammates, no matter what the cipher spawn is or if they're rotating out or not. It's just it's a safe thing to do. Again, it is out of courtesy. So the bottom middle spawn survivor would realistically, because you're spawning so close already, again, this is psychology, this is human psychology part, they would either rotate here or a smaller chance they go into birdcage and then they loop the window once, they vault the window once and loop once and go away. Which leads me to this spot. This really, really strong single pallet, single window area. Now this is where you have to be very careful. You have to be very careful when you're chasing around this area. Because if you don't have, again, it goes to the same exact core concept. If you don't have your left up build, you will get kited for basically half the whole minute here, and you will suffer. You will end up losing, trust me. Now, what is the other variant of the spawns? It'd be like this. It would be the survivor picking left middle. So how exactly does this work? Usually if they do this, it would be rescuer here, guaranteed. I can guarantee you this. Rescue, decoder, kiter. All right? So how you would manage this is, give a couple seconds, where do you think you would spawn? You would be spawning? As wheel, you would spawn here. The reason being, if you spawn here, it's a mistake because rescuer, who else are you going to chase? If you spawn here, you could go into hospital, but you're playing wheel. You're not playing basic hit. But even then, even if you're playing basic hit, it's way too complicated. That's kind of off topic. You spawn shack, you're not chasing anyone. You're not chasing ruins. I'm afraid not. And if you're spawning bottom left, same idea. You don't want to chase rescuer, and you could go after the person on top, but they can just rotate into. They can abuse this single window area, so yellow here, and then they can rotate again to ruins. Same concept. So in this scenario, you would only spawn here, top left again, which means you'll be forced to, depending on the circumstance, vault the single god window here, and then commit on the person under. Usually it's going to be a kiter. So this will be, okay, there's another slightly unconventional, but I would say, I see it more, I see it happen more in Asia server, but it would be the flipped L shape. The person would be taking shack. So what exactly would you do here? This is a trick question. This is a trap. You would spawn here, actually. You would make it an S shape. The reason being, right? They took your best spot. The most preferred spot for wheel is obviously shack, right? Just like I've showed it in the beginning. Shack is the best spot for wheel, all right? Now what happens when they take that? This is the only time when Cypher Lock comes into play. You're spawning here, opposite side, you're locking this Cypher. This is again where the asymmetrical part of the game comes into play. If you spawn here, this one is locked, there's a chance they will move out and do the one here. Now, what if they don't do that? What if they don't? This is where you have to, again, back to the same idea, cut losses. Cut your losses, all right? So it doesn't matter if you're chasing, I would say it's like relatively the same. If you're chasing, in this scenario, if you're chasing rescuer or the person at middle, it's relatively the same kind of, but you can't always predict if the person at middle will rotate into ruins simply. So in this scenario, I would realistically focus on the person in front of me, which is bottom middle. If it's first officer or mercenary, that's like kind of 50-50. It really is 50-50, which means I would probably have to swap to middle and then hope it's birdcage spawn. But even then, that's like huge RNG. It is huge risk already, which means it will probably be a 90-second down. Equals can't turn the position into win. Can't win. Simply can't. Mathematically, it's really hard. So if you face this position, don't fret. Don't panic. What you have to do is you need to accept that there is a if the cipher does not spawn here specifically, you need to cut your losses. Again, same topic, same idea. Cut your losses. Accept that you will not chase this person. Neither will you chase the person at shack. You will probably chase the person at middle, but if you do, you commit, that means 80 to 90 second down, right? This is the other option. Now the final option you have is you chase the rescuer, right? You chase rescue. In this position, you are more or less guaranteed to have a very lay down. Unless terror shock, vault window, or big clear mistake. This will be 60 second plus down for your first chase, first down. All right? But it is only because if there's no Cypher Swan here, that means this person stays shack. You are probably screwed. Not screwed to the point of instant loss, but you are screwed because you have no chance to swap targets. But even then, it's not a guarantee. Because, of course, it's asymmetrical 1v4. Oh my god, I'm tired. Now, we're going to move on to a much more unconventional spawn selection. This is very, very different from what you usually see. It's another flipped T-shape. So they choose left middle, middlemost, right middle, and top middle. This is basically the survivor's gambling on if the hunter chooses here or here. So either of the top corner spawns. Now, if they put the rescuer over here, and you choose here, then realistically you would probably have to be forced to go into middle. Now, if you spawn over here, then this is probably their kite. So you would chase the kiter. So this is more or less standard procedure, right? Now, why do I not encourage a spawn that completes the plus? Same concept. You would not want to go straight into hospital most of the time. I'm saying most of the time because it depends on the game mode also. If you're playing 5v5, you could. 5v5, it's not that serious. If you ask like different people. Some people might take regular rank more serious than 5v5, but that's just besides the point. I'm rambling. But something like this, it can definitely happen. You know? You complete the plus shape spawn, and you spawn here. So there's really only one person to chase, which is you enter hospital. So you go from either side of the stairs, and then you keep pushing. All right? This is more or less how to fight on this map. There's also this spawn. Doesn't matter. You just spawn shack. And there's also something like this, yeah. I don't know. This is like a very weird pattern / shape that humans are very drawn to. Kind of looks like an arrow, I guess. If the survivors chooses this spawn, you would probably have to capitalize and choose here, bottom middle, and go after the crap corner. It's called crap corner for a reason, alright? It is called crap corner for a reason. So then you just capitalize on their mistake on this spawn, because there's really nowhere else to go except going in the open. Alright, now we're going to move on to late game strategies. The gate is here. The gate is here. Okay, so how do you play this? For hospital, it is somewhat generous when it comes to late game strategies. I'm saying somewhat because it is offset by this entire square in the top left being basically useless. There is not much to kite with, and there's no hatch, right? The distance is something like this. It is curved. It's not a straight line because, you know, you have shack blocking it. So it is something like this. It is curved. It's not exaggerated like this, but it is curved. It's curved, right? You could try your best to go into a straight line, but you have to move around certain obstacles, right? So how you play this is very simple. It is very straightforward. It's actually surprisingly not as bad compared to Leo's Memory or even Darkwoods. So you chair on gate. You defend the gate because there is one chair here and there is one chair over here. You defend the gate. You defend the gate. Yeah, and you defend the gate, you defend the gate, and you defend the gate. That's really all you're doing. Now, it's interesting because if you choose to slug incorrectly, you might lose. You might end up with a 3 escape. So that's why it is really interesting that for this map specifically, those 2 chairs next to the gate will become your best friend and your enemy. Because they'll be your best friend if you choose to settle on them and maybe patrol once without speed wheel and then patrol once again with speed wheel. So 2 times speed wheel, right? And equally, they can be your enemy if you choose to slug at the wrong time or the wrong person. You slug here, go here, and whatever shenanigan happens, whether if it's their kit usage, flywheel, or they exhaust all your resources first, they get out, and then the person you slugged over here also gets out. Or well, actually, they get out either from here or here. Usually not from here. Usually not from East Ruins. But you get the point. This map is really unforgiving in terms of terrain because you obviously have the hospital itself and the ruins on top of it. But late game strategies is more or less feasible. I'm saying feasible, not the best, not dog water, not trash, but you have these 2 chairs to work with. They are your best friend and your enemy. All right? This should be all for Sacred Heart Hospital. All right. Next up, we have Arms Factory. So we'll just begin with the spawns here. Usually for this, the nice personality spawn, it is more commonly found in lower tiers. So for this, you would pick top left. Top left, top left, top left. Now, what about something like this? Flipped T-shape once again. Same idea, same concept, same execution, top left. Because what you're doing is you're taking advantage of cipher lock. So this one is locked off because you are on the other side of the map, all right? Now, let's just assume this position. So the person on here rotates into junkyard, the person over here rotates into factory, the person over at middle is the rescuer, and the person spawning shack will take kite. So how this goes usually, we can look at it in a very simplified way and a very complicated way. So we'll go over the simplified way first, actually. So what they would do is the window and then the pallet area. So this area over here, they would try to go over here. They would use this. So it really is a matter of Tom and Jerry. It really is a matter of Tom and Jerry. You can play this however you want, and you have to always be sure of if they are vaulting towards the right or towards the left. You have to make sure of that. So you can swap forms, you can block off the window, you can break the pallet, go back to wheel form. This is more or less a very standard 50 down. Now, there's another way to look at the position, a more complicated way, which is they take shack. They take shack. So how this will go, it's variations from one another, but it is the core concept is to take shack. The correct play is to take shack anyway. So you are wheel, you spawn top left, and your goal is to go straight, right? Or you can easily see if they go into shack from the visual, because this is a direct line of sight, right? If they go into shack, you have to also go into shack and try not to bump into the pallet or the walls, right? Or the little tiny little fireplace, all right? So what happens here? It really is a mix of luck and timing. What I mean is they could be near the window, and you could also be near the window. So this is where luck and timing comes into play. You could have them vault, and you can also go near the window, and you would miss. You would not get the spike. So that means, in your head, you'll be, oh my god, screw this guy. This is so annoying. This is unfair. So you swallow your pride, and you swap forms, and you vault this window, and the chase continues. It's very complicated. Hence, it is complicated simply because of this entire scenario happening at Shack. Because from there, they could go either on here, they could rotate into middle, request assistance from their teammate, or they can go towards the god window of all god windows here. All right? Now, let's just put that aside for a second. We have Survivor sticking to here. Survivor going into Shack, all right? And we have Survivor crouch and hiding. Now, for this one specifically, why would I say it's a huge mistake? It is an absolute miss. The reason being render distance. So usually, well, I would say like 90% of the time, like 95, if you're on this area and a survivor chooses to hide, more than likely you will be able to spot them out before the render distance finishes, like, happening. So they would be around here. So that means their only choice / option would be around this double pallet little wooden area, right? Pretty straightforward. If they do opt for that, you might get really lucky and get as low as a 30-second down to 45, right? Now, here comes the more fun part. If it is, again, same concept, 4 survivors equals all fine to chase. So let's say lawyer, journalist, doctor, and then, I don't know, we'll just say arrow. What would happen here is you very well could do 75 hit on lawyer, and then you swap to journalist. Now, what exactly do I mean by that swap? What exactly do I mean? Let me give a couple seconds for you to think. The reason why it is an okay decision, it is an okay target swap, is because journalist has nowhere to go. Unless if she does want to transition away, quote unquote transition, let's say for example go into Shack, she will eat one spike. Unless your movement is absolute horrendous, like day one learning wheel type. But back to theory, back to class. She wants to rotate into Shack, she eats a spike for free. She wants to rotate into factory, which is definitely the smarter play, but at that point, she would have gotten her 2 spikes, and then you just pray that you can land your 60-second blink, right? 60-second blink down, right? So usually how this scenario goes, so you hit lawyer, you get 75, and then you swap to journalist. She swaps away. It really depends on where they die. Where does journalist die? If she dies around this area, then you chair over here. Simple as that. If she dies inside factory, you could be lazy. You could be lazy and just take basement because convenience factor, for the simple sake of convenience. Or if she dies factory, you can simply take her to the quarter chair. All right. Now let's see. The reason why, if the survivors choose the nice personality spawn, so here, why would you not spawn in the conventional one here? I mean, you tell me. It looks wrong, doesn't it? You're not chasing rescue, you're not chasing junkyard, and you're not chasing factory. So what do? You don't spawn there, obviously. The floor is made of floor, right? So you spawn here either way. Same concept. The nice personality spawn, it just simply means they're already at their preferred rotationary areas, which is junkyard and factory. All right. Now there's another slightly more interesting kind of spawn that does happen on rare occasions. I'm not sure if it's survivors thinking top right is still viable, or just like old gens coming back and still choosing top right, or just them knowing secretly, mentally, that it is going to be a wheel that's going to play on Arms Factory. I don't know. Conspiracy much, all right? You spawn here. You take Shack. Same concept, same exact concept. But this time, you have a slightly easier time, or slightly possible chance of accessing the person at middle, the rescuer in this case. So, how you would manage this position is you chase the person on corner, which is not ideal, actually. It really is not ideal, simply because Arms Factory conventionally, historically, has been really bad for wheel. Now, what would happen is pallet, window. These four, if we exclude the slightly worse window and then the useless pallet, these four would be more than enough, absolutely more than enough, to carry you to at least 60 seconds. At least. So at least. Alright? And that is worst case. That is technically cut your losses kind of scenario. You have to accept that if you're in this spawn selection and the middle rescuer is, let's say, someone that you don't want to chase, like mercenary or first officer, that means you will have to commit onto the person to your right, which is top right, and you'll be forced to, again, back to the same exact thing, the core concept of this entire guide, left out build. You bring confined space on Arms Factory and Red Church, period. You bring left up build on Arms Factory and Red Church, period. So you would have to be forced to vault again, and use trap here, and then probably blink, yes. In this scenario, yeah. That's realistically what's going to happen. Now, there is a slightly more unorthodox spawn, which is them picking top left. But usually how this will go, because the game... So obviously you would spawn Shack, right? Obviously, you spawn Shack, and because the game... I'm not sure if this is part of balancing or just really bad RNG, but the game usually doesn't spawn the survivor like right next to God window. They get spawned like towards the back. So for this, it might seem like you would have to chase middle, but no, you chase towards your left. You chase the top left person, which is really interesting because at most, how the standard procedure, what would happen is you get one spike landed, the person vaults the God window, and they just simply rotate to here. Because out of courtesy, again, they would not stack on the person at junkyard. They would not do that. No one wants to have their teammates stack, right? Everyone hates stacking. So they would actually be hurting themselves more if they pick top left, because they would be left with only this area and maybe Shack. But if you try to transition, again, you get a free spike. So you would have two spikes, and then you get blink down. So it's already a 60. Doesn't matter. So it would be actually better for the survivors out there. This is actually a good tip. It would be better for you to just simply choose top right if you're really unsure. But even then, your first option, your first priority would actually be Shack in the first place. So yeah, whatever. There's probably also like a 1 in 100, 1 in 50-ish chance that you see this one, the box spawn again, where they protect their decoder at factory. How I would manage this is interesting. I would probably pick Shack. Now here's the thing, because rotation is king, and you can't stack. That's the golden rule of this game. This person can't go here. This person neither can go here. So it really is a matter of how lucky your rotation RNG is. And of course, like cipher spawn. So if it is over here, if there is 2 at middle, and like this one, it really is a matter of luck, right? So if it is a box spawn, you would realistically first test the waters, go middle, and then maybe, no, I can't really give much guidance on this because this is the most like luck dependent kind of spawn. So if the rescuer is an okay chase for you, go after the rescuer. If the person right above the decoder is in the open, so let's say here, then just chase that person. Easy clap. All right, this is more or less it for the spawns on Arms Factory. Now we're gonna move on to the, oh my god, let me just clear all this. We're gonna move on to the late game strategies. So, hatch is here, here, and middle, right? And gate is here and here. It's not straight line, interestingly enough. It's not straight line. Anyway, for this map, I would say, ironically enough, it's quite easy to catch a draw secure, actually. It is quite easy to catch one. But there's a catch to that catch itself, lol. How you would manage this is really simple. You have to know. Have to know the hatch locations beforehand. You have to know the locations. Therefore, what I'm trying to say is, if you know it is at... Okay, first of all, if it is a middle spawn, you will have mathematically, statistically, a harder time securing the said draw compared to if they spawn like on the side or corner, right? That's just a given. So this mostly applies to if you know the hatch location and it is either on the side of the map or on the corner of the map. So how you manage this is you force a survivor, this is called zoning, you force a survivor to go into a certain area that you want them to go to. So let's say one guy goes out from this gate and one guy also goes out from this gate. You are chasing here, somewhere around these 2 squares. So that means you are able to have leeway of this entire shack area or even this top corner. It's simple to understand but really hard to explain, but simply due to the fact that this map has like decent terrain and it is decently forgiving, unless maybe it's central spawn. It's not that hard to secure 2K. That's what I'm trying to say. Honestly, everything I've discussed on other maps can apply to any other map, such as the turning 1K into 3K victory. But of course, it's just much harder simply due to the fact that this map is physically smaller than, let's say, Lakeside Village or Moon River Park. But there has been moments in my career playing this game that this map has shown itself useful in turning 1K into 3K. Clutch. Yeah, clutch up. Anyway, this will be more or less it for Arms Factory, and it will be placed in D tier. It's fine, but it is only the second worst map. It is fine, but I don't recommend playing wheel. If you play wheel on this map, it's already a mistake, so I just hope that you would know what you're doing. Anyways, this will be it for Arms Factory. Okay, now we finally moved on to the final map. My worst enemy, my absolute nemesis. Red Church. So this will be the standard spawns. Now, I know you might be asking yourself, how the hell are you supposed to even fight this? How are you even supposed to win on this map? First of all, let me just answer one by one. You're not supposed to play wheel on red church. And if you do play wheel on red church and you end up losing, don't come crying at me, all right? Don't come crying for me, all right? Because wheel, historically for wheel specifically, this is the absolute worst map. If you play wheel on him, you either like to be masochistic or you're doing a very impossible challenge. Unless you're me. You could be me. I mean, who knows? Anyway, here is a mistake. Here's a mistake. Here is a mistake. Here is fine, and here is fine. There is no real spawn for red church that will give you an advantage. Simply put, there is none. Now, why does these two spawns specifically work? Left middle and top right. It's a spawn that forces rotation. That's why. It forces rotation in terms of, so for this one, in terms of like scattering survivors and making them not instantly decode. So this will be no instant decode. All right? And then for the top right, which is like what I always use, is jump. Oh my god, can't write. Jump scare technique. Jump scare tech. All right. So I will go over my spawn first. So how this works is you pick this spawn, top right, all right, and you slowly go over the person under you. And what you will do is you will fake a fake. You will fake a fake within a fake that is a fake. Good lord. You will fake going into this person, chasing this person. Sometimes even better if you don't bump into the thing. You will go inside of the wall entrance, right? The wall entrance. You would go in without bumping into the objects, right? So that's like more convincing of a fake. And what would happen is you would exit and you would go into like this area, but you're not entirely going into church. So what would happen is this person, he pings 100 change targets, right? 100 change targets. So then this person would be notified and he would assume he's taking chase. But most of the time what happens is you go here, you fake, you get out, this person thinks he's getting chased, but you fake again. So fake again times 2, and you chase the person at red carpet. So in the entire scheme of things, why you're spawning here is simply to fake once and then fake twice to chase at red carpet. Now, things can go really, really wrong here. Things can go really wrong fast. If you try to do 2 spikes and you can't, and you waste a lot of time getting stuck on these little benches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 benches, and even this window, you'll find yourself struggling for the rest of the match because you were simply not able to get it fast down. Now, you can always play it a safer way, which is the 1 spike technique, right? 1 spike tech. But from there, they could rotate into this corner, but I would probably advise not to because you only have 1 single pallet to work with, and then by then blink would be up, all right? So what would happen is they rotate into church, simply put. Realistically, they don't want to take too much time on church and rotate into 2 people's areas, right? That's just bad. This is bad. This is stacking. So what would happen is they go into church and they vault on the outside window. So this one. And then from there, they would rotate into graveyard. And then they would die at graveyard, whether if it's from snap or blink. So they die here, right? So when the rescue happens, the person who died at graveyard would just simply move into Godkite. So this area. Well, technically this entire area is Godkite. Anyway, as I was saying, 2 ways to play this spawn. So one is spawning top right, and the other is on the left middle. So what happens here is, more or less, the person at shack remains unaffected. The person here has to be on edge whether to rotate upper or to rotate bottom. The person at middle is the most at risk. So he might have to rotate towards shack and then loop once, or go from the single window and then go straight into graveyard, so on and so forth. And also the person at red carpet also has to keep guard. Now, we're gonna do a slightly different spawn, something like this. So they flip the person from the right side to the left side middle. Now, when I see this spawn, I don't immediately go and say, wow, that's a mistake. The reason being, they could simply have the rescuer spawn here. So even if you pick here, top left, and you go down, you might not have that pleasant of a time chasing a rescuer, such as, Gravekeeper. So that means you have to spend more time faking a fake, fakey, double fake, and then you chase red carpet finally. It's really interesting how even a mildly different variation of spawns on red church can just not make that much of a difference. Anyway, next up is this kind of spawn, a completely flipped T-shape. So how this works is somewhat similar to Hospital. You could spawn here, but it's slightly harder than, chasing here. So instead of picking top right, you would pick top left. Same idea. They would realistically spawn their rescuer over here on the left, because this spot is obviously weaker than the right side. So how this usually happens, how this goes is, you pick top left. What are your remaining options? You kind of have to chase the rescuer. Right? So let's just assume this is GK, Gravekeeper. I mean, if you brought insolence or no insolence, I mean, good for you. You're gonna farm some more presents, but it will realistically be an 80-second down. 80 seconds of your time spent chasing rescuer, all right? Okay, so this is more or less the somewhat standard plus non-standard spawns, and then we have something like this, or something like this. Now I'm gonna go over the first one. The first one being the reverse L. How you would do this, how you would handle this is you spawn here. Reason being, you don't chase middle, you don't chase shack most certainly, is you see which target exactly you want to chase. If it's rescuer who is at red carpet, you just skip this and you go after bottom left corner. But you do have to keep in mind, they can collapse these two windows, make it a god kind of loop area. That's to keep in mind. Now there's the other one, which is here. I would say this is probably the rarest in terms of actually somewhat decent spawns that is not completely like brainless, which is like 4 corner spawns. Anyway, how you would handle this is here. Reason being, you have a straight path towards this person, towards the left. The reason why you would not go straight into church is it's predictable. It is way too predictable. So that means they will be ready, waiting for you at the window. Now we're going to focus on why it makes sense, why it matters to chase the person on the bottom left, is because even if you are in this exact scenario, this exact spawn, they would not have enough time to set up the windows. They will probably, at best, set up 1. They will be able to push 1, but you would have already been closing the distance anyway. So realistically, they would go straight behind the pallet, right? So this will be down to how good your movement is. So you chase here, it's going to be movement dependent. So let's just assume you get your 2 spikes on this person decently fast. It's going to be a very standard procedure, like always. They drop this pallet here, you break this pallet. Again, same thing. Say it with me now. left, up. Oh my god, I can barely write. Left, up, build. Period. For Red Church and Arms Factory specifically, left, up, build. Period. So you break the pallet really fast, and then the guy's rotating into this area. If you have decent trap knowledge, if you have enough matches, you throw a trap here and you blink down. So this scenario will lead to 60-second blink. All right. This should be more or less all for the spawns on Red Church. Now we're gonna move on to late game strategies. So this is gate. This is gate. All right. Hatch would be here, and then here, and side. All right. So this map, being the smallest in the entire game, it does kind of come with advantages and disadvantages equally. Somewhat of the same concept as Arms Factory. You have to know beforehand, you have to prepare for the late game where the hatch location is, where it is. If it's one middle, so right outside graveyard, that's why I call it middle. It's harder to play around with it for sure, but it's like forgiving-ish. It's like somewhat forgiving, because you can simply wait outside. It's hard to explain when there's no gameplay happening, but it's like there's many ways that you can secure a 2K. Whether if you have 2 spike, you just instantly snap so they don't start de-spiking, right? De-spiking. You are outside of church, and then survivor is inside. You snap the damage, so then you just wait for your blink, so on and so forth. There's many ways to play this. Now, what I really want to go over is these 2 hatch spawns. These 2. The corner one and the side one. It's much easier to keep control of the match if the hatch is either here or here, simply due to the fact that it's somewhat close to the gate, but not too close, if you can notice, if you can realize, right? So that means survivors would have to, how do I put it? This is hard to like explain, man. This is so hard to explain. Survivors need to exit from either gate, and then by the time that happens, it's fine, because you'll be able to, you would know the hatch location, so you'll be zoning correctly. So you would be forcing them to go either here or here. But if you're playing on this side specifically, it's much harder, because you have 2 on one side compared to 1 on the left side. Anyway, same concept with traveling the gates. For Red Church, I guess it's like the most unforgiving map in terms of if you greed or not. If you want to greed, if you slug someone, you better accept the chance that you're gonna turn a 2K into a 3 escape, because this is definitely not a straight line. You would probably be doing this, something like this, and then you do this. There you go. It's a lot of twists and turns to get from one side of a gate to the other gate. So what I would suggest, if you do get Red Church, please do not play wheel. That is like my honest advice. Please do not play wheel. Learn a different hunter that is more feasible to use on this map. And if you do play wheel, please be very careful not to greed too much and just accept the 2K. And therefore, I'm putting this map in F tier, the absolute worst. But yeah, this will be for Red Church. The thing basically instantly gets her off of film mode. Yeah, it does. Okay. So, okay, that's good. And then I snap right around now. Well, the thing is you have to take damage. Okay, go film. I'm gonna use Foggy and try to do the flywheel to negate damage. So I'm just showing the viewers that, yeah, there you go. Wheel is basically unaffected by the damage negation thing with flywheel cheese for Lanternist because he's just too good. He's too good. Okay, 3, 2, 1, going. Yes, that's good. That's good. So cape, thing, swing of the cape cancels out wheel rolling spike. 2, 1, 0. Oh, perfect. Okay, so you can eat spikes when wheel gets trigger happy. Okay, 3, 2, 1, 0. Perfect. Okay, so as you can clearly see, snap is on cooldown, 32 seconds, and then off. Okay, so perfect. So if you get trigger happy as well, vaulting the tagged window, your snap will also be on cooldown. Okay, that's gonna be Matador. So do it now. And then perfect. So as you can clearly see, if you're within the black circle of Mime Artist and you use your snap, if you're trigger happy, it will put it on cooldown. 3, 2, 1, 0. Oh, that is perfect. That is actually perfect. That's actually perfect. Okay, so wheel full presence can be cancelled. Wheel full presence cancelled by Mime Artist Black Sludge. I don't know what to call this. And I want to show a little secret egg here. Vault outside. Go towards here. Yes, here. You can notice that it's a drop down. So stay here. Yep. You're gonna suffer. You're gonna get hit. Okay, so see, drop down. Okay, and that will be all for the new survivor interactions and niche stuff, etc.